Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two informative videos are done for the day, it's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And two people who I don't happen to get along with very well. One of them just took a pop shot at the other. Jerry Ward called out Layne Norton, and he said at first, I don't know if this is a call. You know what, if you want to say go ahead, it's shots fired. So let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, work on skill up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. And you know, the interesting thing here is that, well, I'm not going to fully agree with everything Jerry said. It's kind of ironic that Jerry probably hit the nail on the head with the general idea of his criticism of Layne. And it's almost ridiculous that that could happen when it comes to a nutrition-related topic, because I think we all agree when it comes to the actual molecular science and metabolism and biochemistry of human nutrition, Layne probably has most of us beat out here. I mean, let's just be fair. Let's be fair. He did do his doctoral work in this, does have his undergrad in biochemistry. So it's not like we're dealing with someone who doesn't understand the topic. But the problem, and again, you've got Jerry, who has really a very large misunderstanding of oftentimes the science of nutrition. Very bro science. But it's ironic in light of that he actually really got it right. And I think part of that is because Jerry might not be the smartest guy out there. He really isn't. But he does make his living coaching people, being a trainer, coach, things like that. He has a lot of experience with human interaction, and because of his client base, presumably he has a lot of experience dealing with people with a lot of eating disorders. And he's very aware of the obesity crisis, whereas you have someone like Layne, who is basically a narcissistic psychopath. I don't think Layne understands human motivation and behavior very well. He definitely understands the biochemistry end of this. Doesn't understand human emotion, psychological nature of people. And I think that's kind of the difference there, is that I think Jerry is probably more in tune to that. And again, I hate to give a compliment to someone I don't like, but I've got to give credit where credit is due. Jerry does do a lot of real life coaching. I'm going to assume he's probably pretty good at his interpersonal communication with clients. It's the impression I get. Probably has a talent for it, and that's one reason he's been a successful coach, in spite of a lot of the other nonsense that he puts out, because he probably works very well one-on-one with people. Probably where his real skill set is, because everyone has skills. I don't care who you are, everyone has skills. That's probably where his skill set lays. So the interesting thing, Layne always promotes the flexible dieting thing. And Jerry jumped in and basically said, Layne, yeah, okay, calories in, calories out, but have you ever considered that maybe this whole idea of all these foods that you think are just fine to eat, because it's only the calories and carbs, fat, and protein that matter? Do you think maybe this is still why we have an obesity crisis in this country? And that's the interesting thing. And that's the thing that the skinnier guys and girls who've never been really overweight, they don't grasp, they don't get it. And I don't think it's any secret that I put on body fat really easily. But the difference is I've been at this game long enough that I understand and can rationalize without attaching my own emotion to it why that is. I know exactly why that is. It has to do with appetite issues. It has to do with developing unhealthy relationships with food due to hunger hormones, appetite stimulation, everything else. And in some cases, there is no good workaround for those things other than to simply not have the foods around that are going to be a problem for you in that situation. Right? Sometimes it is as simple as that. Sometimes it's that simple. And I don't think anyone out there is denying, who understands the science at all, that calories in, calories out, that is the energy model by which fat gain and fat loss occurs. All right, everyone does understand it's an energy balance equation. Now, no reasonable person, when people say that, oh, you're saying all calories are the same. No, no one's saying that. That's a straw man argument. But the point is, at the end of the day, we know that different calories have different thermic effects. We know that different types of calories have different satiety effects because of the foods they're coming from. But yeah, it is an energy equation, but here's what it comes down to. If you are eating highly processed, hyper palatable foods, you are simply going to be more prone to overeating. People who are prone to addiction. And a real good way to tell if you're prone to addiction, how many alcoholics and drug addicts do you have in your family? Have you ever been an alcoholic or a drug addict? Well, if that's the case, and Jerry has been a drug addict. I think he understands the addiction process a little bit. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. There is an addictive component to obesity. There's an addictive component to foods, particularly hyperpalatable foods that are calorically dense. And he's talking about, well, it's just the chemicals. Well, it's not just the chemicals in there. It's not necessarily just the MSG and other things, but let's be realistic here. What things stimulate appetite? The flavor enhancers, MSG, sweeteners, sugars, or even refined sugars being added to foods, they make foods taste better. If you have dopamine issues in your brain due to being predisposed to addiction, you are going to get a stronger overeating impulse. And in a way, once someone gets addicted to hyperpalatable foods, it's similar, but it's going to be weaker to certain forms of drug addiction. It's very, very difficult to say no. And it's not just a case of saying no. Saying no is easy. Even me, I can walk by a bunch of people eating pizza and say no, because I know I don't think I should be eating pizza at that moment. As long as I don't try the pizza or eat the slice of pizza, I'm going to be okay. Because I just say no. So I just don't say no to drugs. But once I eat that first piece of pizza, it's turning that switch back off. Because what ends up happening for people who are predisposed to obesity due to whatever it is, certain foods that trigger appetite due to having a high caloric density, maybe too much cheese, which again, casein seems to exhibit some certain appetite enhancing effects. Sodium, salt, makes you hungry and thirsty. Large amounts of sodium in the sauce, very low fiber, high calorie food like that's a perfect example. It's very difficult for people who are predisposed to overeating to stop once they start. And the only real solution is you just have to avoid the foods that trigger you. And some people say, well, that's not a healthy relationship with food. No, it's not. But the problem is I don't know that there's a cure for that. And when we look at the rates of obesity out there, it's not just as simple as tracking calories. And I think Jerry's right here. It's all the hyper-palatable foods that have been excessively refined. He keeps using the word chemicals. That's not the right way to word it. It really is about foods that are excessively refined, that are hyper-palatable, easy to overeat, that don't fill you up very well, meaning the amount of calories that you're going to take in versus the unit of volume in your stomach is high. And they taste really good. There's your obesity crisis. It's not because people can't add. It's not because people can't look at it and read the calories on the label and add them up. It's because some of these foods taste so good that people who have very large appetites, which again, there's a hormonal response with that, and people who have addictive personalities, which again has a hormone response in the brain, are going to tend to overeat these foods every single time we get our hands on them. And that's just the reality of it. And again, that's like telling a drug addict they just need self-control. No, a drug addict just needs to stay away from drugs. An alcoholic probably just needs to stay away from alcohol. Someone who is a food addict with a lot of these foods should probably not have a 1 gallon tub of ice cream and 6 frozen pizzas sitting in their freezer. Probably not a good idea, because that's the thing. This flexible dieting thing seems to work really, really well for guys who are always skinny, who go jump into the lifting world. They put on 20 pounds of muscle and now have a metabolism twice as high, or total energy turnover that was twice as high as it was when they were skinny and weren't gaining weight. All right, those people, it's easy. And for those people, they need to just track everything meticulously and eat whatever they want to fill the niche, because they don't overeat. They don't like food, or they wouldn't have been 150 pounds before they started training. They don't like food. They're not overeaters. All those people need to do is get their numbers right so that they either don't lose muscle too quick or so that they can force themselves to eat enough to gain muscle. But a lot of it has to do so that they don't cut their calories so low when they're losing body fat that they lose extra muscle. They need to track and add these Pop-Tarts and whatever crap in just because these are people whose natural appetite is probably 500 or 1,000 calories less than their energy turnover when they are very, very physically active. These people, it's not because they overeat. They have to track everything meticulously to make sure they get enough carbs and protein and fat and calories to keep the muscle they have or to gain any. This approach doesn't work in my experience with the chronic overeater, which is over 30% of the American population. And it's not just America anymore, it's growing in the entire Western world, everywhere where all these highly refined foods are added in. And we're seeing it even in Asian countries now, which historically do not have an obesity problem. Because the thing is, these genes are still all over the world. They exist all over the world. The people just haven't been exposed to enough calorically dense, hyperpalatable food to see it turned on until we see these wealthy first world countries where we have access to all this. And it is a problem. And it's not necessarily something that we need to always deal with at the larger level. I'm not saying that these foods should be banned or anything, but it is going to come down to people's personal responsibility and being honest with yourself and saying, can I have these foods in my house? Can I take just one bite? And if you're the person who can eat just the one Oreo, or like he said, the person will eat the entire packet of Oreos. Look, if you're legitimately the person who can eat one Oreo and it doesn't make you overeat, this is not a problem. If you're the person who, when you eat one Oreo, you're going to eat the whole package, it's going to be a problem for you to keep Oreos around. Probably not a good idea. Not going to be beneficial to your life in any way. Nova, chill out, buddy. Other dogs out there barking. Come here. Come on, Nova. You want to say hi to the camera? Come on. Come on. Come on, boy. Come on. Up. Up. Come on. Come on. Oh, okay. Come on. Come on up. About to say goodbye to everybody. Come here, buddy. He is growing a lot. Come on. Oh, look how big he's gotten. Okay. All right. Nova's been on that there Dreamer boat too. He gets a lot of chicken and brown rice. All right. Well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time. You want to wave to the camera, Nova?